this talk will not be as technical as Ivan's. So this talk is about small personal journey I'm still on. So I'll talk to you about how I channeled the frustration I felt for many, many years towards Adobe, towards Magento, towards merchants, toward my team members, and how I actually was able to channel this energy into something very creative and uplifting. So I hope you'll find this presentation interesting. And after the presentation, there will be a small QR code, and I would appreciate if I get any feedback from you guys. So my name is Jakub. I've been involved in Magento, well, for over 12 years now. I'm an active developer and architect. As mentioned before, I like to keep my hands dirty with the code. So I still dig through the code. I write my own extensions. I write a lot of open source, actually, stuff that I share with the community. I'm an active member on Twitter, lately on LinkedIn, because Twitter, in my opinion, has become very toxic. And if you're looking for a great way to communicate with the community, then LinkedIn is, I think, the last bastion of decency on the web. I'm an open source enthusiast. I'm founder of Coliber, which is the former custodian studio. This whole rebranding process is also a part of the frustration and some negative energy that was left by the previous business partners, which I have. And I'm actually a published author. So if you're getting back to Magento, that's the first and only book, so you know it's the best, about Adobe front-end development. And it's actually a step-by-step guide how to create from the teams to really advanced JavaScript customization. So if you are new or you have new team members joining Magento front-end development in your company, and you still have themes or old stores that you have to manage, then this might be a good guide, because obviously we know that new stores should be built on Hoover. So, if you know me, or you know me from Twitter, I'm actually an untitled silver medalist in complaining about Magento. So everywhere possible, every conference, every Meet Magento event, every online form that was available, I used to complain about Magento, Adobe, Magento Association, everything that there is. I believe the only form of communication I didn't use was carrier pigeons to complain about Magento. So, what's going on? Let's enable the cursor. Yeah, so if you want to prove that I was actually the one who complained, you can see that Tian Lan actually submitted on my personal profile on LinkedIn this message that I no longer complain. Well, I do, but not officially. And I found a ways to compete, right? If you want to learn a few things more about me, I like life, simple pleasures, sushi, traveling, cheeseburgers, good beer, and actually getting involved in the passionate world of video games. But I think I'm using the wrong button here. And for you who don't know me, my genetic code was updated with a patch I call ADHD. And it's a funny personal trait. So if you talk to me after the conference or during the conference, and if you see me interrupting you, it's not me being rude. It's just my brain is actually processing information like on the 400% of capacity of a regular person. So I probably already know what you want to say, and so let's just skip that and continue the conversation. Like I said, it's not me being rude, but ADHD is a double-edged sword. Because on the one hand, some of the merchants I work with, some of my team members say I have patience of a saying that would drive everybody else mad. But on the other hand, some very tiny things can just make me jump into like uncontrolled frustration mode. So like I mentioned, it's a double-edged sword. It's a funny trait of my personality. I discovered it, to be honest, like a year ago, so I still learn how to cope with it. So if you have this patch, as I call it, in your genetic code, I advise you to learn how to cope with it and encourage, actually, what's inside you. The downside of the ADHD is that it has a threshold. So if that threshold is reached and somebody takes one step further than it should, then there's a nuclear explosion that might break the relationship with merchants, with employees, with everyone. So that's why I decided at some point in my life I need to learn how to harness this energy. So some people also know me or used to call me Roy Kent of Magento community because of the way I used to communicate. Sometimes I also very direct, if you don't know who Roy Kent is, definitely you need to watch Ted Lasso, because it's on Apple TV, and this show is absolutely amazing. So, I try to divide this presentation into a couple points, as you can see here, but I might go off script, talk about something else, and this, you'll probably see my ADHD kicking in and talking about something else. So this is supposed to keep me in check. So I would like to about what are the sources of the frustration. In my personal opinion, maybe this will be something you can relate to, maybe not, we'll see, but if you're in this industry for many years, at least 5, then I bet that some of the points you can relate to it. And the most important thing of this presentation are actually the point 2 and 3. So what happens if this frustration, this boiling energy is not managed, and how we can channel it into something positive, maybe for personal growth, maybe for some extension development, but basically to transform this into something positive. I'll share some personal experience how I actually transformed this energy, this frustrating, raging feeling inside me to some cool things, and I'll share with you some final tips for the teams, how as a team you can actually harness this energy. All right, so what is frustration? I'm not a psychologist, so I'll not be giving you any definition from a book. I believe that frustration is this overwhelming sensation that represents your inner thoughts, your inability to make changes, maybe in your project, maybe in your personal life. But basically, what's the most common feeling we have when we feel frustrated? It's anger, right? We are feeling angry, we are feeling upset. And if you look at the anger as a psychological response from your body, it gives you energy to act, right? I believe the anger, the frustration, is a signal from your body, from your own personal self, maybe from your subconscious, that you need to change things, you need to act, because if you don't, then the problems might happen. So if you were to put frustration into a shape, think of something that, and excuse my language, but holds your shits together, right? It can be a steam boiler, or it can be a dam on a river. So everything that happens in your life, maybe on a business level, maybe on a personal level, that's adding more and more anger, more and more emotions that you cannot handle. The frustration means that this boiler, this water behind the dam, is filling up, and if it's not handled, then it's going to be a disaster. And again, if you have this ADHD patch, you're like a dormant volcano that's about to erupt. And trust me, the consequences of this eruption are not nice for anybody around you. So it can affect your families, it can affect your business, it can affect your loved ones. Anything that is in your life will be affected by frustration if it's not handled. First sign that you need to do something and something is not right, well, this is also for ADHDers. It means that something is wrong. You're starting to procrastinate. You're starting looking for those small dopamine kicks that makes you feel better. But that's the first sign that something is building up inside you. And if not managed, if you're starting to procrastinate in your projects, especially in a project, if you're starting looking for something better to do, or maybe if you're starting answering tickets that are on a low priority, but you know you should answer those with the highest priority, but you just want to have something completed and feel this small sense of accomplishment. This means something is not right, because if you won't harness this energy, if you don't do anything with this frustration in your life, this is what happens. First, it will lead you to the burnout position, that you will no longer feel any satisfaction from your work. You will no longer feel any pleasure of what you are doing. Right? For example, I love to code. I like sharing my code with the community, and it boosts me with positive energy once I get a cool feedback from everyone. And if you just do things for yourself that you don't appreciate by yourself, it will lead to the burnout, and the most serious state that the unhandled frustration will lead you to is depression, right? And I'm not an expert on depression. Łukasz Bajserowicz was mentioned I think yesterday a couple of times. Yes, last year he was giving an amazing talk about this. So if you ever had the chance to meet him, I encourage you to attend one of his talks about this. But the problem is, unhandled frustration will lead you to the more serious condition that not might be so easy to fix. So, what were the sources of my own frustration? I prepared 11 points here. I don't want to go through every one of those. I can summarize it in one word. Anything in our industry that has to do with people or the things they did was leading me to frustration, feeling anger. Right? The biggest issue I actually had from this entire list was the merchant's customer support. So we had a client, well, doesn't matter where from, they had their own support, who were managing everything on the platform, the content, editing the products, and so on. The problem is, English was not their native language, well, nor was mine. So we had issues with the communicating. So we created all the PDF instructions, we recorded videos for them, how to manage everything, but they still kept coming back with the same issues, with the same problems over and over again. And it has led to like the biggest frustration in the entire team, to the point that two of my best developers talked to me about leaving the company, or else I'd drop the client. Because that was so frustrating handling with this guy, and their support staff. So let's be honest, if you're dealing with people, it can easily lead you to feel anger. So we need to find, or you need to deal with this on some level. And I'll share with you some tips, what I do. And the question is, what frustrates our industry? But I bet half of you here met all of those points and experienced those in your professional life, especially when you are dealing with e-commerce, which is more and more challenging. Once again, I went the wrong way. So I've decided to do something about it. I decided that I cannot live this way. I need to do something about it, because I'll go crazy, or I'll basically leave a huge fallout next to me, and nobody will want to talk to me or even speak to me. Because many years ago, I was called even the frustrated guy. Because like I mentioned, every conference, every possible way of communication, I was complaining and not doing anything about it. So this is what I started doing. I read some books, met some people, and I decided to start action, to do something about it. So I started with this simple thing. All the problems I have with the merchants, with the team, and even in your personal life, that you divide into two categories: things that I can control and things that are beyond my control. Again, one button. So, for the things that are beyond your control, I know it sounds easy, let it go. It's better to say numfap. So for those who watch The Office, definitely know what that means. But stop caring about the things that are beyond your control, because there is no good situation where the only result will be you being more frustrated or sad or angry because you have no influence. For example, before 2022, I was frustrated at Magento Association because they were not doing anything for the community. Luckily for us, we have Matthias, and things are changing and navigating in the right way. So let's talk about things I can control. And I start usually with creating the list. I write every solution to every problem that I have. And I specify how I will solve this problem, which basically gives me nightmares, that I cannot sleep at night. So what I found amazing about this approach is that I know every possible scenario how to solve this problem. It usually takes like 5 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, maybe a walk with a dog, but you'll find surprising that you know exactly what to do. So what's the problem? Why are we not taking actions and resolve those problems, resolve this frustration? And because your brain likes to play what I call evaluation game. You're starting to think, what I will gain if I resolve this situation? And what I learned is that we don't take action because we are only focused on the short-term goals. And what are those short-term goals? Usually I think the men can relate. It's like saying, I can handle this, right? It's just a temporary discomfort, right? The situation is not bad as I think. I sorry, I got a tongue twister. Well, sorry. Well, you know what I mean. Right, so you play this evaluation game, and you decide that this temporary discomfort is something you can handle, you don't need to address, and, well, you'll be fine. Nothing wrong will happen. But that's not true. Things will happen, things will go down to shit if you don't handle the frustration. So I've learned to implement what I call release valves. So how to handle this frustration, how to release the pressure from the boiler, how to, well, basically let go of some water from the dam. And those are the three things I do. Well, I know I used to say that I used to vent. I still do it because it helps. But I do it in a very trusted group. I always try to add humorous content to it. So when I share some frustrating things from industry, from a merchant, from a partner we work with, I always try to sound it funny, because it really helps dealing with it, right? But first of all, if you want to vent, learn from my experience and don't do it everywhere. Find a trusted group, find a trusted friends, maybe from your own company, maybe from a different company. Maybe you have a meeting where you just talk trash about merchants or customers or even about one another. But it helps, but you need to be sure that this is a trusted environment, that you can do it. But the most important thing, let people know you will do it. Because there's nothing wrong when somebody is just talking to you and just start talking trash about something, right? So let people know that you will help to do it, that you need to let off some steam. Because it helps, and people need to know about it. And I do it on a Slack channel. I don't know if many of you are aware of it. There is a Mage Slack, which is a dedicated Slack channel for community members, where we discuss ideas about Magento, where we discuss movies, sometimes politics, and we have a dedicated channel just for ranting. Well, it's sad to say, but I'm not a gold medalist on this rant and vent. There's a guy from Scotland, Francis, who maybe you know, he's the king. His rants are so extremely funny, it's like, it's entertaining, the way he writes about everything. This is my dog. So when I'm feeling bad or frustrated or anger, we just go for a walk, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours. It was easier when she was little, like a puppy. I got her in December. She's getting stronger and stronger, so sometimes it's hard to focus on things in your head. You just need to, keep your dog on a leash. So I'll share with you some examples how this frustration, how this anger actually resulted in some positive energy, some solutions that we actually developed. Well, I developed and the team picked up on it, and we started sharing this stuff. So the first thing, I like to call it backend versus the front end. What's the problem? The problem was, well, let's not skip ahead. The problem is, and if you're working with the teams, you probably know about data patches in Magento, right? So sometimes you need to create a data patch for a CMS block, to update some settings, and so on. And in my team, for some reason, the guys got into like a fight. Who needs to create the data patches? Is it the front end, because they prepare the content? Or is it the back end, once the front end prepares all the CMS block? And in the end, in 3 projects, we actually pushed the templates with a pre-made content and never created or connected the backend code to handle the data. Lucky for us, it was never lorem ipsum or any random content like this. It was always based on the designs, based on the default content. And after the deployment in the 3 projects, we actually had 1 day to complete all the backend to manage the content. So everybody was frustrated at one another. The backend team, they actually didn't talk to the front-end team for a couple days. So the front-end team was blaming the backend developers because patches are PHP code, so it is not their responsibility to create data patches. So instead of shouting at everyone, complaining that, oh, come on, we fucked up again, we made the same error again, I've created a module which I'll call Data Patch Creator. It's available on GitHub for everyone. And basically, for the most common sections in the backend, it's adding an export to data patch button for CMS blocks, pages, configuration, product attributes. I think there's for widgets as well. It's been a while since we updated it, but it actually resolved all the tension in the team. if you want to give it a try, I encourage you to. It's really a cool module. It hasn't got any update in 2 years. We still use it in every single project. So you just click the export to data patch, and it creates you a PHP file with the entire code to actually add a CMS block, product attribute, import images for the products, and so on. And it has led to me to create this small, I call it e-commerce nanobots, as a nanobot as a small e-commerce solution, that is dedicated only to open source solution and sharing everything that I do as an open source is under e-commerce nanobots. Right now, it's actually 11 extensions. It's not much. We have like 65,000 downloads of everything. But it just showed that this thing that was frustrating and actually ruining the relations between the team has led into creating this module. And what's actually interesting, because of this module, we save a lot of time in every project with just creating data patches for the benchmarks. So the tension between the team, the problems with the code, led to something really uplifting and positive. And the another extension that is available on e-commerce nanobots came because one of the merchants really made us angry. For some reason, the merchant was making the same mistake over and over again. And it's a very simple thing. He didn't know how to change the language in the admin interface. And I don't know what was wrong with it, but every time he changed the interface to Polish, he logged back in and the site was in English. And once he called me on Sunday at 11 p.m. screaming at me because the website is in English. So it took 30 minutes to create this extension. It's also available on the GitHub under e-commerce nanobots, admin local switcher. And we actually learned one funny thing about this extension and Magento itself. When it's compiled in production mode, you only get a list of languages which have been precompiled. In the development mode, you see all the languages. And after I've implemented this extension, and I've actually created this on Sunday around midnight, I push it to the production with any disregard for testing, because that's basically a drop-down with some flags and saving the user data in the admin, so I don't think additional advanced testing was necessary. And the whole tension on Monday was just gone. Well, I didn't get much sleep. I was still angry at the merchant. But instead of screaming back at him and ruining the relationship, I decided to act on this and basically create this small extension. So frustration, the anger you're feeling, if you change it into energy, into action, can lead to really boosting your creativity and problem-solving skills. It's a huge emotional response, huge power that you need to harness. And even this book, which I wrote, which was released, I think, 3 weeks ago, comes through a little frustration point, to be honest, because I used to have a training for the front-end developers who were joining Magento community. And when we started looking at the documentation online or any step-by-step guide, that was many, many months ago. That was a year ago when I started writing this. I decided to create a guide for front-end developers, how step-by-step they should basically progress with Magento front-end development, right? From a simple theme creation, but it's not just about the front-end. It's also explaining all the technological part of Magento that a front-end developer should know. So I don't know how much time I have left, 5 minutes. So I'll just skip through the next slides, because I hope there will be some questions. Frustration also led me to be a Magento 2 contributor. There was a bug in the platform that was actually blocking development of two projects that were in the making. So I decided just to contribute, and I've learned a lot about contribution. The second icon represents all the things related to the DevOps and hosting. So instead of going back and forth with the emails with the hosting companies, with everybody involved, not getting a clear answers or a clear response, you know how the admins like to be technical, right? Hoping you won't understand what they are saying. So I had this problem with another hosting agencies from Asia. So instead of going back and forth, having our issues for the merchants unresolved, I decided to take a DevOps course, and after a couple months, I knew exactly what they were talking about. So same for the SEO agencies. So instead of being angry that I don't know something, that I cannot do anything, frustration towards those companies to knowing that I don't know how to handle things or how to work with those hosting companies, the SEO agencies, has pushed me to learn new things and grow as a developer and actually be able to help my merchants on a much wider scale. So, just to go through this list, frustration, if managed, is an energy that can facilitate learning, it can improve your communication, it can improve your emotional intelligence, it can enhance your problem-solving skills, but you need to take action. Without action, its whole thing is absolutely worthless. So you need to learn how to harness this energy, but only in action. Doing something will release it. It can be creating or starting a project, an open source project that you share with the community and get people involved. Because trust me, if you have a good, positive energy, people will pick up on it and they will do things with you. And you can do amazing things with the open source, as we know. I'll just share 2 points as a bonus for the frustrated teams, what you can do, and we'll jump to the questions. We still have 3 minutes, right? So, if you are as a part of the organization or as a team, do some mental exercises. If you know that there's frustration on anger within your team, do those mental exercises. First one is absurd solutions. So make fun of everything and over-exaggerate it. Oh, I pronounced it right this time. Over-exaggerate it. Make fun of everything. You'll see and you'll be amazed how creative people can become and how this even very bad negative energy can change into something positive and uplifting within your team. And it's actually super awesome for the team building. Once you start get people really pumped up and excited, coming with more and more ridiculous idea, one after another, it's really fun. And trust me, people will probably remember this feeling, this positive emotions, maybe even through the rest of their lives, that there was this moment where we all just sit together and laugh. But do this in private, if it's about merchants. Don't let them know that you play this exaggeration game, because it might be something about the way the merchant communicates. It might be about somebody, but don't do it about people. Do it about solutions, do it about projects, and make fun of it. Like I mentioned, the frustration is the power to change, but only if it's managed properly. Here's the link to the QR code, and I hope we have 2 more minutes for at least 1 or 2 questions. Thank you very much for listening to me and my story. I hope you enjoyed it.